Well. Once a wise man said that sport brings countries together, but did you know that it also brings podcasts together? And on this first ever cricket.com Vodcast, we are going to be joined in by two content strands online that we've normally seen in the game of cricket. Of course, I'm talking about the cricket podcast chaps, Max and Jack. Thank you so much for making your presence felt in this first of a kind thing for us.
Oh, thank you for having us. Yeah.
That was almost an echo. And we also have Santoki, who, of course, is from the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And I'll just leave the descriptions of all these guys in the links below so you can go check out their individual channels. And first and foremost, Santoki, congratulations with the whole CPL tie-up. It's fantastic to have you as well on board.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to coming on and discussing the World Cup, which West Indies are definitely going to win.
Banter's already started. Love it, gentlemen. So, like I was just telling you off air, no house rules. Everything really goes here. And it's funny because right now I'm Indian. Santoki's representing the West Indies, and we have two Englishmen right now. It's fair to say that these are the contenders of the World Cup, so to speak. We'll start with England, West Indies, because ultimately I know there are two games on Super Saturday to kick the World Cup off, which is Australia, South Africa, and England, West Indies. You can catch it all on cricket.com and, of course, on these guys' platforms. I'll start with Santoki because you said West Indies are definitely contenders right there. I wouldn't put it past them, given their World Cup pedigree and whatnot. What excites you the most, my friend, about West Indies right now?
I think if you look at the West Indies, it's their firepower. I mean, if you look at Pollard leading, the amount of strength they have in batting, be hard to look past them. And we've shown, as you said, we've got a legacy in the World Cups of standing up in tournaments and playing in these tournaments when it matters. The only concern we have is obviously the bowling, which I'm sure we'll get into. But for me, that firepower, Pollard, Pooran, Gale, Hetmeyer, Fabian Allen, Dre Russ, it's just unbelievable. So you can't look past them at the moment. And the experience they have gained from the IPL playing on these pitches all combines with...
Santoki, you there? He's just frozen.
He's frozen.
But it's fine. We can catch our breath with what he's saying. I mean, Jack, I'll come to you because England lost to India the other day. So, sorry, Santoki, I think you just froze. That's fine. It normally doesn't get off to a perfect start, we always, but we'll probably take on with a couple more singles. We'll get to Max and Jack right now because you made some valid points about West Indies, Santoki, with regards to just some of the characters in that lineup. They lost to Pakistan in their warm-up. Jack, if you're a West Indian fan, would you be concerned or would you be, like Santoki, pretty optimistic going into the tournament?
I wouldn't really care that much, to be honest. I think these warm-up matches, they're about getting a few miles in people's legs, a little bit of experience in the conditions, shaking out some cobwebs for the guys who weren't in the IPL. I think, as well as that, Pakistan probably really wanted to win that to kind of prove a bit of a point. I'm not sure West Indies cared too much about that contest. I certainly wouldn't care if I were in the West Indies camp, just like I don't really care as an England fan that they lost to India
I'm sure
a
you
glorified
care.
last night.
Come on. I mean, at the end of the day, it was cool India schooling England. I mean, that was the headline at least.
It was what it was the wrong England bowling attack getting taken to pieces by some Indian batters who had a lot of time at the crease in the IPL and are also, taking KL Rahul off the leash was a good decision by the Indian team. England have better options. They have a better bowling lineup than the one that they played last night, and I think if they didn't know it already, it will really crystallise for them that they have to be as aggressive as possible with the bat. And I think there were some encouraging signs there. 188 is a pretty good score. I mean, it might have been 10 light, bearing in mind who was bowling for them, but it's still, all of the big guns fired pretty much. I'd be happy if I were an England fan. Well, I am happy. I am an England fan.
Okay, I mean, let's see if Max concurs with you because ultimately, I know you guys will point out with the bowling weaknesses. No Morgan, of course, for that little tactical insight that he offers because, truth be told, the bat average right now of Morgan is being shambolic.
He's a specialist captain.
Max, I mean, are you looking forward to this World Cup? Because there are a couple of bowlers we didn't see the other day, which is Reece Topley and Tamal Mills. One played for my favorite franchise, RCB, and he just capitulated early. But has he come back stronger? I mean, there's good signs for England to be optimistic.
I think so. Yeah. I was mostly focused on Sri Lanka and Namibia, I have to say, during the England-India game. I'd like to say that my focus was on the game that people should have been watching, not the warm-up that was stealing the show from the group stage of the World Cup. But yeah, I think like Jack said, with the batting, that was a promising sign. Moeen Ali getting back into form in that IPL final just in time is ideal for England to come out and just do that role of coming in and starting hitting sixes from the get-go, which is what you need when you want to pile on those big scores. Yeah, my only concern is Owen Morgan coming back into the team. I was looking at the team that we put out yesterday, and I was like, I quite like this batting lineup, but I can't put my finger on why. And then someone pointed out in a separate conversation that Owen Morgan wasn't playing, and I think that was why I like the look of the batting lineup. So we'll see what kind of impact that has when he comes back in. But I'm also looking forward to seeing.
He said today, Max, that he'd be prepared to drop himself if it meant, or he didn't want to stand in the way of England winning the T20 World Cup, I think is what he said. And He said dropping himself might be an option. He also said that while his batting's been bad, his captaincy has been good. So I don't think
he's giving himself serious
an out. He's giving himself a bit of an out, definitely. But like you say, I think I preferred that England batting lineup without him. And maybe if you sort out the David Malan problem as well, that could be a hitting lineup to rival the West Indies, I'd say.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question to Santoki nicely, I guess, because ultimately England, West Indies, they're going to set the tournament alight. They have before in this format. I mean, Mumbai, people remember vividly with that brilliant run chase all those years ago in the World T20. Santoki, you mentioned a couple of West Indian names. I mean, ultimately, you look at that squad, you look at characters like Ravi Rampaul and people like that. They're still around. I mean, no offense to them, but do you think that the West Indies are perhaps a touch short in the bowling department?
Definitely, but I think Ravi Rampaul is an underrated aspect to this squad. He's always produced with the wickets. I think for Derbyshire in England, he had a county contract, which he only lost because of the whole Brexit situation, and that kind of forced him to get back into the West Indies setup. He played in the regional 50 overs, done well, and then CPL is where he really stood out. 19 wickets, leading wicket taker, in the power play particularly effective, and he's essentially kept Jason Holder out of the squad, which shows how much faith Phil Simmons and Pollard have put into him. But with his experience and everything, I'm expecting Rampaul to step up. But as you said, overall, the bowling unit is a concern, especially with Sunil Narine missing from the side as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Sunil Narine because he was just brilliant against RCB in particular in Sharjah. And we even spoke to Brian Lara, who was on our platform, who said he literally feels like home on these surfaces. Do you think he would be a big miss?
A massive miss. Like Sunil Narine is world class, one of the greats in the format. The only reason he's missing is because he failed a fitness test as per Cricket West Indies regulations. We don't know whether he took the test or if he refused to do it or if he actually failed it, but he didn't meet the criteria. And so whilst you could say West Indies could have provided an exemption and fast-tracked him into the side, credit to them for sticking to the guidelines and policy which they've laid out for the squad. So he will be a massive blow for West Indies when you consider our secondary spinner, Hayden Walsh Jr., hasn't got much experience outside of the West Indies. So it's going to be a big step up for him.
Did Chris Gale pass the fitness test?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. This is exactly what I want to know. It's because Sunil Narine is not going to be a heptathlete, is he? But Chris Gale.
Essentially, with what they've done is they've based it on each person's own condition. So Gale, they bear in mind that he's got back conditions and he's 42. They've set him his own criteria. So everyone has individual criteria.
No, I get that. Okay, guys, so let's stick with the West Indies here because ultimately they are two-time champions and they could possibly be the third time this time around. Now, we saw pretty much what we can expect from them in terms of Pakistan games, in terms of lineups at least. And Toki, correct me if I'm wrong, you like Gale one down or do you think he should be better off opening the innings?
I think, well, he's proven as an opener, but I think Evan Lewis and Lendl Simmons, they work really well. They have a good partnership together. And Lewis, we've seen him for Rajasthan. He's played well. He's destructive for West Indies. So I'm happy for them as openers. Gale, it's a tricky one. He obviously was moved to number 3 in the IPL first, and then West Indies have kind of followed suit to fit him into the side. His performances this year for West Indies have been underwhelming. But then on the other hand, it's Chris Gale. We know what he can do. He's always when his back's against the wall, he stands up. We've seen in the past week legends such as Curtly Ambrose and Viv Richards criticise his place in the side, and that's going to fire him up. And combined with West Indies always seeming to step up against England in particular, I'm sure there's going to be fireworks on Saturday, and it wouldn't surprise me if Gale is leading those.
Jack, would you be concerned of the West Indies on Saturday? Because ultimately, they have quite a lot of firepower in that middle order. I mean, we just saw a little bit of a taste in the IPL with Hetmeyer, Pooran, Gale, like he mentioned. Not to forget the Spice Man, Andy Fletcher. He gets left out in terms of like some of the names because ultimately the Pollards and everyone kind of just supersede everyone. Having said all of this, I mean, England should be worried.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think if you look at the teams in England's group, Australia, South Africa, West Indies, plus 2 other nations, West Indies are the only one that have a real fear factor about them. I think they're the only one with multiple players that can hurt you. Australia are quite a one-dimensional side. I think South Africa have got some really well documented issues with spin. In these conditions, I'm not sure they're going to be great, and I'm not even sure. Well, I'm pretty sure that they haven't picked their best team for this tournament. So, other 2 teams aside, I mean, I think England are very, very. They've got a very good chance of beating them. West Indies, though, there's probably 4 batters in their lineup that could single-handedly win you the game, or win the game for the West Indies. Possibly more. So, Tucky, you probably know, or you probably have a better opinion on that than I would. But I am concerned. Basically, is I think that game is much more of a 55-45, whereas the other 2 are 70% England.
Okay, let me put this way to Max, because ultimately T20 is matchups, right? And you look at a fixture like England, West Indies, they don't have really good spinners. He mentioned Hayden Walsh Jr., but it's still early days for the youngster. Do you think they can target not just 1 or 2 bowlers, but perhaps 3 in the West Indies lineup? Because it doesn't really seem like it's the best West Indian attack that we've seen.
I think that's it. I think with England West Indies, it's kind of a bat off, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
From my point of view, England have got a lot of firepower themselves, and they will back themselves to do well against the West Indies bowling attack. But equally, I don't think there are any bowlers in the world that the West Indies batting lineup are afraid of. Like we've seen, Evan Lewis came into the second half of the IPL and was just like, so treated absolutely no one with any respect, and just
they're not going to be scared of David Willey, are they? Like
no,
it's not.
No, exactly. Tyler Mills is in there for pace, but
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I generally get your point, because ultimately, when we look at England West Indies, I think that this is going to be some sort of humdinger. Might go to last ball thriller. Who knows? Santoki, are you worried from a West Indian fan perspective, because England are touted as not just contenders, but a team that can really win the competition? I was going to say goddamn competition. I'd say it already.
Yeah, I'd say England are the biggest threat in the group. And as Max rightly said, I think it's going to be a bat-off. I think we're going to see a big score, and it's going to come down to the firepower. Obviously, we've got bowlers such as DJ Bravo at the death, but he goes for a lot of runs. So when you combine that, I think it's going to be a big 180 to 200 kind of match. And it just determines on which batting lineup is going to fire.
There is also the possibility of a Roston Chase 8 for. We shouldn't rule that out.
I mean, it's happened in a different kind of clothing, but let's see if it really transpires out there. It will just be ridiculous if it really happens. Let's come to the other teams right now, because ultimately everyone watching this would agree, arguably, that England, India and West Indies are perhaps the top dogs. Who else kind of are the dark horses to emerge out? Is it New Zealand and Pakistan, or could I be completely wrong here? Santoki, come in.
I'd say you can never really rule out Pakistan in the tournament. They're similar to West Indies. They all sort of step up. And as you said, they performed really well in the warm-up. How much that indicates is questionable, but I think Pakistan are definitely a threat. New Zealand, I wouldn't necessarily, partly down to the conditions and the makeup of their side, I wouldn't put them as favourites. So for me, Pakistan are the big outsiders, as you would say, to look at, other than the 3 that we've mentioned.
What do you think they can set up India on the 24th?
Potentially, I mean, they'll definitely be motivated.
dagger in the heart. We've never lost to them in the World Cups, and I don't want to really jinx it right now. But how do you guys see that? Just quickly, because India-Pakistan is invariably the biggest game of the year. All due respect to the Ashes and whatnot. But Max, from a neutral perspective, India-Pakistan, you saw it, not too long ago in Manchester 2019, where we just obliterated them.
Yeah, that was I suppose an anticlimax from a neutral and Pakistan point of view. I suppose from an India point of view, it was the ideal outcome. But yeah, that's the sort of the beauty of these World Cup tournaments, isn't it? Where you don't get to see Pakistan, India very often, so it often gets contrived to happen at a World Cup, and it's something that everyone should tune in for, because I can't see anything but fireworks. I think, I sort of feel like it could be whichever team wins that game later down the line, someone will get their own back. Maybe in a semi-final or a final.
Ultimately, what do you think deep down? What does your heart tell you? What does your head tell you?
My heart tells me that Pakistan will win, and my head tells me that India will win. But then in the final, whichever team won the first game will lose that. That's my bet.
Go full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
It really makes me think, because ultimately, you guys have a great YouTube channel, which is about 8.5K healthy subscribers, and there's a lot of Indians over there, so you choose your words wisely.
Yeah, so I'm just going to come here and say India are definitely going to win. They're the best team in the tournament. All of their players, 1 to 11, best in the world. Definitely no. I think it'll be really close. I think Pakistan will be really motivated for it. They have a decent T20 setup. I think they've missed out. I think the reselection of their squad at the last minute was probably not the right decision. I think they've picked a few golden oldies that maybe don't deserve another World Cup, but they're not necessarily bad players. They will have a chance against India. I think India are the favourites, but it's not going to be a walkover by any stretch. And I also think if Pakistan do win, they're exactly the sort of side that, it's a massive cliche in cricket, isn't it? But Pakistan, when they've got momentum and that they believe they're on the way to achieving something good, can be basically unstoppable. It's as England fans, we've been on the receiving end of that regularly over the years, and I think kicking off their tournament with that India match is in some ways the best possible thing that could happen for them, because they get you can emotionally build yourself up as a player, get going. If you get a result there, they will feel like they're kings of the world. For India, there's probably a little bit more pressure on them because they're the favourites and because they're expected to beat Pakistan here and also sort of set their tempo for the rest of their World Cup. I feel like there will be a lot more expectation on them to produce a performance and to win than Pakistan, where it's a little bit of a free hit, and you can just have a go at India.
My one concern for Pakistan, though, sorry, I was going to say my one concern for Pakistan is they get a little too fired up for it.
Well, yeah, but you can't get sent off in cricket, can you?
No, but you can lose your mind and play terribly.
No,
this is the flip side of Pakistan.
We've seen that 4 years ago, where they really toppled India in the Champions Trophy. I know it's 50 overs, but still, I think Pakistan, if they are watching this, their fans, they would tell us, you know what, Babar and Rizwan have a great opening combination up top, and then they have great bowlers like Shaheen and Hassan Ali and Shadab who do the job. Santoki, would you be worried, say, for example, if West Indies met a Pakistan in a semi-final? Would you be worried? Would you prefer someone like Australia?
I was just about to say, the fact it's in the UAE means Pakistan will have a large amount of fans there, which makes... I was at the Champions Trophy final at the Oval, and the Pakistan fans there were just unbelievable, and I'm sure they'll replicate that. So for me, the tournament being held in UAE also gives Pakistan an advantage because the fans really pump them up, and once they get a sense of that, as Jack rightly said, at some points they seem unstoppable.
Yeah, unstoppable indeed. Let's see if they can really come unstuck against some of the associate sides, which we'll talk about right now, because ultimately, Max, you mentioned it, Sri Lanka, Namibia. It wasn't really the best cricket game to watch, but we've seen some of these sides do great things. Curtis Camphor 4-4 was just brilliant. We saw some of the Oman guys play some tremendous cricket as well. Who's impressed you the most? There's one guy in PNG called Charles Amini. and I think Asad Wala, and they're just brilliant to watch as well. Just characters, more characters in the game. Santoki, I'll come to you, but I want to hear from Max and Jack first. Tell me about these teams and tell me who impressed you the most.
Well, I was really impressed with Scotland's approach against Bangladesh. I mean, obviously the result was also highly impressive, taking down a full ICC member. But it was how they kept going after being reduced to 53 for 6 with their lower order. They realised that if they want to win the game, they had to still try an attack, and it's like trying to see out the last 10 overs to make sure they got a score of like 110 ultimately isn't going to get you anywhere. But the fact that they realized that and played it in, I guess, the proper way, didn't they? They approached T20 cricket in the right way, and that got them over the line at the end, and that was really impressive from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, Scotland have just generally been doing a lot of things right in the last couple of years in all kinds of formats. And let's see if some of their players will come to the party. I mean, George Munsey is one who comes to mind because we were talking with Jared Kimber in one of our videos earlier. And he said that man plays the best reverse sweep out there compared to anyone in world cricket. So let's see if Scotland comes about it.
I don't know. I think Jatinder Singh for Oman will give him a run for his money.
Yeah, he's good too. He's really good. Jack, I mean, anyone impressed you in terms of the Netherlands pace attack? We saw them a little bit as well. Who do you want to really thrive in these kind of big tournaments?
I don't want to echo Max too much, but looking at Scotland, I'm more concerned about England playing Scotland than I am South Africa, I think, at the moment. They look like a much cleverer, more canny T20 side with a really good bowling attack. So I think Scotland, have stolen my heart to some extent. I think they're my second team, if you like.
Your brave heart.
But that will certainly be something. I mean, if it's an England-Scotland game, we saw it in the Euros. I think it was last year. It was a drab 0-0, and Scotland was celebrating. But would you guys literally take it to heart if you guys lose to Scotland? Because I know what Callum McLeod did against you guys in a 50-year
It
competition.
would be a disaster. It would be worse than India losing to Pakistan times 100. If England lost to Pakistan, England lost to Scotland.
It would also be peak England
at a World Cup. It would be. I tell you who I've actually been impressed by, and it's not the most thrilling answer either. But I thought Sri Lanka's bowlers were a lot better than I thought they'd be, and I thought the skill difference there between them and the Namibian side yesterday put to bed any questions I had about whether Sri Lanka would be able to get through. I thought Sri Lanka might actually struggle in the group that they are in, but they look like they've turned up to play. They look like they've picked probably the right squad. So maybe Sri Lanka won't be as poor a side as I thought they might be. Bangladesh, on the other hand, have been the opposite of what I thought. I thought Bangladesh would qualify easily, and it looks like they're going to be in a bit of a dicey one against Oman, which is happening at the moment. Or Oman chasing about 150 odd, and hit 13 off the first over. So,
I mean, it'll just be interesting to see if Oman get into the thick of things, and hopefully they do, because they have some really, really colourful characters in their side. Santoki, just coming to you, because who's impressed you the most? I know you're always have a keen eye on the West Indies, but just for these associate nations and all the smaller teams, anyone caught your eye?
Yeah, since we're talking about Oman, I think Bilal Khan, the bowler, has been really impressive for them so far. And I think as a general bowling unit, Oman's really impressed in the 2 games I've seen them so far. Obviously, the Bangladesh game's going on at the moment, but they put themselves in a strong position. So they've been impressive. Papua New Guinea as well, not particularly for their performances, but just the fact that we're able to see them at this type of stage is impressive as well. And you mentioned Amini as well, just his legacy. I think they've got a stadium named after them, the family, his parents, his grandparents played for Papua New Guinea. So that they've been a fairy tale story more than anything. So it's been a real pleasure to see them at this level.
And the best kit.
The best kit.
I was just going to come to that. I mean, great kit, really. We spoke to Carl Sandry, who's the coach of PNG, who's funnily enough an Australian, and he's played for Italy, the national cricket team over there. He's had a phenomenal story, so you can check it out on cricket.com. Before we finish with the lads, because we promised them half an hour, we're going to give you half an hour. Predictions, and this is where there could be egg on your face later when we catch you all up, probably in a month's time after reviewing the World Cup. We'll start with Santoki, Max, and Jack. Of course, what I want to know from you all is 3 things: winner, top run scorer, and top wicket taker. On top of your head, I know the tournament proper hasn't started. We're probably putting this out prior to the Indian-West Indies clash. Go for it. The floor is yours, Santoki.
Okay, I'm going to try and come up with 3 different countries for each of those answers. So I publicly tweeted since the beginning of the year, West Indies are going to win the World Cup. So I can't back out of that now. So that for me, that's my pick to win. Top run scorer, I'll go with KL Rahul. Has to be him. Top run scorer and top wicket taker. I've been influenced by the IPL, so I'm going to go with Nokia.
Okay, lovely picks over there. I mean, West Indies, really, no one would really bet against that because I think they're the bookies' favourites as well. If they had Narayan, I think they would literally have the tournament with them already. Max, would you agree or disagree, or would you think Santoki's talking completely out of his back hole?
I had in my head KL Rahul for top run scorer, so I'm going to change that because we don't want to start going for the same things, do we? That wouldn't be very interesting.
Yeah, I don't.
So I'll go for a home pick, shall I? And Jason Roy's gonna light things up based on absolutely no logic whatsoever.
That's a bad call.
Yeah, pure punt. Wickets, I'm thinking I'm going to go Varun Chakravarti. I think he's just going to tie people in knots, and he'll take some of the wickets that he gave to Sunil Narine during the IPL. And as for the winners, let's go with what country have I not gone for yet? I'm going to go Pakistan. I'm going to go Pakistan. It's good. Yeah.
Oh, you traitor. Wow. Okay, great. I mean, love it. I mean, if they win, I mean, really credit goes out to them. I can't say anything really. I was just trying to keep my thoughts together. There is a recency bias that we've seen with Santoki and Max, Jack. They've gone for IPL players who've done well. Nokia, KL, of course, Jason Roy did reasonably well with their Sunrisers in his brief stint, and Varun Chakravarti. Now, who are you going to go for? Because ultimately, are you going to go, say, top batsman heavy again, like an opener, or someone else?
Right. So I think India are going to win the World Cup. I think they've got the best squad. I think if they play like they did against England yesterday, they'll just hit too many 4s and 6s for people to chase, especially given they've got Jasprit Bumrah, which is like having a cheat code, to be honest. So India are going to win it. I think top bowler, I'm going to go a little bit of a wild card here. I think Tymal Mills could be really, really useful bowling at the death for England. Lots of people have seen him. I think that might be part of the reason we didn't see him last night against India. I think England might want to be, might be keeping him in the back pocket and not letting people get too much of a look at him. Obviously, he's played on the circuit, as it were, in some of the other domestic competitions. But nothing like the IPL for a few years anyway. So I think Tymal Mills has improved a lot since his time at RCB. Definitely one of the best death bowlers in the world, and he'll bowl there a lot, and that means he'll have the opportunity to take a lot of wickets. So I'm going to Tymal Mills, a bit of a wild card, and then I'm going to go for a really obvious one for top run scorer, Babar Azam. I think will score a lot of runs in this tournament, partly because of the role he'll get to play. He'll be the anchor for the Pakistan team, and I think Pakistan will be the sort of side that look to score 150, 160, which means he can take his time a little bit, get himself in, and really, dial up the number of runs he scores. But yeah, so India, Tymal Mills, Babar Azam as my 3 picks to follow what the other 2 have done and vary the nations a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I love the variety, all 3 of y'all, really. And just to play with y'all in this game, I'm just going to choose my 3, which is Bumrah, Kohli in India. And actually, I'm not going to go through that route. I'm actually going to go, you know what, New Zealand. I mean, no one's really mentioned their name. It could be their year. It was in, of course, different clothing earlier this year, toppling India. It could be a repeat of that final. Who knows? Because ultimately, they're canny with Kane Williamson leading them. Trent Bolt just knowing how to exploit, of course, the power play with the new ball. They could really be a threat. Even though they lost against Australia in that warm-up, New Zealand definitely winning this for me. I mean, it's strange to say that in an Indian kit. KL Rahul, I mean, completely agree with Santoki here because he played 2 shots against England in that warm-up, which I probably haven't seen better shots all year. I mean, one to the car park on the left-hand side and one straight ground. I mean, which really entered the football ground, which is brilliant. And so I would probably echo Santoki with KL Rahul. Bowlers, I would actually go Rashid Khan. I mean, I know that Afghanistan might not make the semi-finals and finals, but he might just take a lot of wickets. I know people like to play him out, but ultimately, Rashid Khan could really be bringing his best to the the tournament, so to speak. Right. So we're about to conclude here. Thank you so much, guys, for making your presence felt. We can, of course, let you guys go with a final word. One word to basically describe this T20 World Cup and what to expect. Santoki, we'll start with you. One word.
Fireworks.
Max?
Is that 2 words?
I think it's one word. Similar theme. I was thinking carnage.
Carnage. Scotland.
They're going all the way.
Cheeky old
Tartan.
Jack. We love it. We absolutely love it. On that cracking note, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. There'll be plenty, of course, these guys, hopefully in the future, and much more as well. Until then, it's a goodbye from me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Cheers. Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it.
No problem
No
at all.
worries.
Yeah.
cheers.
So I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully, we can do something individual as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
See you guys. See you, Matt. See you, Santiago.
Cheers, guys.
Nice
Yeah,
to catch up with you again. See you
Cheers,
later.
bye.
Thanks.